When top scientist Reed Richards led his team of explorers into space, they were blasted by a shower of cosmic rays. Endowed with incredible powers, their lives would change forever as they became the Fantastic Four.
Doc Doom's banner, melted by gamma rays.
Brainiac, what is it?
Look, I just want some pants. A decent pair of pants.
Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off. What are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
It's morphin' time! Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
My spider senses are starting to tingle.
Fabulous secret powers were revealed to me the day I held aloft my magic sword and said,
It's clobbering time.
Face front, true believers. It is TWIG Sunday Funnies, resurrected from the long boxes of the damned, to borrow a phrase from a certain internet reviewer. I am your shiny, tinfoil encrusted sentinel of the spaceways, JT from Saskatoon, and with me, as always, is the one being in all existence that could give Galactus a run for his money, Mike the Birdman. How you doing?
That's right. I do indeed hunger, but not for planetary energy today. I hunger for something else, and that is an entertaining discussion.
Yeah, so we are going to be talking about the Fantastic Four in film. Because we have Fantastic Four, the Fantastic Four First Steps coming out tail end of July this summer. You know, we got the internet's current favorite daddy, Pedro Pascal, as Mr. Fantastic. God, I can't already forget the name of the actress playing Sue Storm. Vanessa Kirby. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm looking forward to this. I mean, this comes out next week, and I think it's going to be really awesome. I have thankfully stayed away from most of the spoilerly stuff sort of thing. I've seen the trailer. I mean, obviously, it was in front of, like, every major movie this last spring. I've stayed out of the news cycle for this because I really genuinely want to be surprised by this. So I'm really optimistic for this, and I guess we should mention this off the top. We're going to talk about the Thunderbolts spoiler for this because the Fantastic Four ship shows up. That's all you need to know. What does that mean? I've got theories, but I guess that kind of ties into a larger thing because I think eventually, JT, at some point, we're going to have to talk about Secret Wars and Doctor Doom at some point. Let's we're going to touch upon Doctor Doom today
about that casting. But that's a future episode. That's a future JT and Mike the Birdman problem, and those assholes can deal with it when it lands on their doorstep. But today we are going to talk about the original attempts of getting a Fantastic Four film franchise started, and we're going to muddle with the timeline a little bit. We're not going to talk about the first attempt to do this. We're going to talk about the second set. And that is, of course, the Tim Story films from the early aughts, Fantastic Four in 2005 and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer in 2007. Now, right off the hop, I have to say I love the first film. As I've said many times before on this and other podcasts, the script is the biggest villain here. So
yeah, it's kind of weird how fast they get into the origin of these guys, which I guess is a good thing and a bad thing. Like, I've recently rewatched these in preparation for the new one, and I was like, this is a weird thing that I've noticed from movies from about that time. They hadn't figured out what goes into the superhero secret sauce yet. Because, like, the X-Men movies, which we really should touch on those at some point, too.
Yeah.
But I was like, Spider-Man and the X-Men, you do get... Spider-Man drags it out, which is good, because they want to set it up properly, and that's the hallmark of Sam Raimi. But then when you get into the X-Men movies by him who shall not be named... they work as well. Like the first X-Men, like you know who Cyclops, Storm, and everybody is. You know who Wolverine is within the first like literally 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it works out great. Here, it's like, hey, guess what? We're going to space. Hey, guess what? Dr. Doom, I need money. And then it's like, whoa, slow down there, chum.
Yeah. No, light tangent here. With a lot of superhero films, you have to go, I think, with characters that maybe aren't at the forefront of even the layman comic book movie viewers. You do sometimes have to start with an origin.
Yeah,
So
like everybody knows Spider-Man, everybody knows Batman, Superman, but you have to explain heroes like Daredevil, the Punisher,
the Fantastic Four.
yeah, the like Fantastic Four. Like I think maybe someone might know in passing, but it would be like maybe they got their powers from space. They don't just know, right?
Yeah, because so the plot of this first film, very briefly, is we've got the titular first family of the Marvel universe. We got Reed Richards, who's played by I'm gonna butcher his first name.
Owen or something.
Yon Grufford, or Grufford. Jessica Alba as the Invisible Woman. Chris Evans, our Lord and God, Captain America, is originally Johnny Storm. Michael Chiklis, he of the Unit, not
the Shield.
Unit, the Shield, yeah.
Yep.
Who I did not think Detective Vic Mackey would be such a nice guy. And that asshole plastic surgeon from Nip Tuck as Dr. Doom. Don't get me wrong, I love Julian McMahon as an actor. That dude has got some serious skills, like in the right context. Like I loved him when he was on that FBI's Most Wanted, and I was really kind of bummed out when, he left the series, but he felt his time was done, and I can't hate him for that. But so that the FF and Doom go up to Doom's super space age satellite research station, because Reed's got this theory about cosmic rays starting life on Earth, and I personally think the wording in the film when they talk about how all of a sudden the cosmic ray storm is on their doorstep and it's not going to be there in a couple hours, that most people think it's like miscalculation by Reed. It's like, no, you can't judge the weather.
Yeah, space just happens. And weird side tangent from myself. Like I actually study space weather, not as a scientist because I'm not that smart, but I've taken an interest in it for a number of years. Like we actually interviewed a scientist on TWIG probably about 5-10 years ago. And I think the scientist's name was Tamantha Scove, and she was a NASA weather scientist. And yeah, like stuff when it happens on the sun, be it like a solar flare, stuff like that, like class X or whatever. But when it comes to cosmic stuff, like we're talking literal gamma ray bursts, because those do hit Earth more often than you might think. It just happens, and that stuff happens at thousands of times. It's like speed of light stuff. So literally, it's not like Reed could just like, oh shit, it'll be here in 4 hours. Like, nah, if it's something truly cosmic and beyond our typical realm of understanding for science, it will happen, and you just you better hope you're not in the way of it.
Yeah. Well, so they barely get the shields closed. Like Doom should mention he's dating Sue Storm at this point. Like she and Reed used to date, and she's really frosty to him. I do like how they kind of get the, Reed stretching himself, and Ben is the rock, in the relationship, and Sue
Johnny's
feels
a
like
hothead.
yeah, Johnny's a hothead, and I do love how he's introduced, where you think he's kissing a girl in a sidecar in his Harley, and it turns out she's in the convertible, and he's riding a Harley, and then he just takes off, and I'm just like, oh dear God, I wish I was that cool.
See, I was watching this with my next door neighbor and like one of my best friends, Liam. I was like, wow, that looks safe.
That implies safety.
Yeah, of course.
So they go up. Doom has this argument with Sue as the storm is incoming. He shuts the shields, which are made of this Not at all made of adamantium because another company owns those rights. And even though it was made by 20th Century Fox, and we do not have time to get into the rights there, she goes to help Reed and Johnny save Ben. Ben just barely gets into the door when they're all like hit like a Mack truck. And you see when they get hit, Reed stretches and Johnny catches on and Sue kind of fades out and this, that, and everything. And they go back to Earth. They slowly discover their powers. In an early 2000, in the most early 2000s superhero movie way, Johnny finds his flame powers while snowboarding with
Some random
Maria
hot girl.
Menounos.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that woman to this day is aging like a fine wine. Sue blinks out of existence at dinner. Reed goes to catch a falling wine bottle, and then Ben literally turns into a rock, and Kool-Aid Man's his way to his. I don't know if he's married or it's just his girlfriend, but
I think it's his girlfriend because
or wife, who
wife
knows?
or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And she gives it up and they make this big splash and they become like these instant celebrities. And then along the way, Doom is in danger of losing his company because, investors pull out. And I love the scene where he's sitting there, just scratching his head, and then he pulls his hand away and he starts looting the hair, and you see he's turning into metal, which is how Doctor Doom was introduced in the Ultimate Marvel comics at the time, that he was turned into this goat-legged man of metal. He wasn't. I think some part of him was a suit, and the Ultimate comics, aside from the Ultimate Spider-Man series, aren't that very well written, so we're just going to put that to the side. And Doctor Doom becomes Doctor Doom. I do love the cloak he gets, and he has the helmet. And this is like after Reed has created a cosmic ray chamber to fix Ben, because, like the comics, Reed feels incredibly guilty for, futzing his best friend's life up like this. And they fight Doom, and the day is saved, and Johnny does the big flaming Fantastic Four in the sky, which is a thing from the comics, and we get that, that end credits, or not end credits stinger, but that
mid credits stinger,
mid credits scene where his little
assistant or whatever,
his assistant, who is totally gay for Doom. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
And honestly, who wouldn't be, right?
Yeah, I know, it's Julian McMahon in the early 2000s. That dude was a dreamboat. And yeah, he's Doom, and he goes back to Latveria. Now, I love the first movie because I think they get the sitcom family dynamic thing of the Fantastic Four pretty well. We should mention this thing went through two directors. Like, it was directed by Tim Story. Originally, Raja Gosnell was signed on as the director, who did stuff like Never Been Kissed, Big Mama's House, the two live action Scooby-Doo movies.
Weird pick, but sure.
Yeah. He left, and then Peyton Reed, who did the first Ant-Man film. He also did Yes Man with Jim Carrey, Bring It On. If I happen to be into the cheerleader film series soon.
Honestly, I kind of thought they were actually a little bit underappreciated, actually.
Yeah.
I rather enjoy them.
Yeah.
I mean, when I look at the Fantastic Four, the first one, there's a lot to like, and it's not cinema. I will say that.
Right than wrong.
Yeah, like, it's the best way to describe this movie, because I think you and I talked about this in like another show we did earlier this year, and I called this, it is aggressively mid. It's non-offensive for the most part. Yeah, it's fine. It works. It's something you could show someone, they're gonna say, that was all right. And I think that's good. Like, one thing I do like about this, for the most part, I think they got the costuming pretty good. I mean, the costumes are not as gaudy as the X-Men 2000s. What would you prefer, leather or whatever?
Yellow spandex.
Yeah, like, it works. It's not overly complicated. And even Reed gives an explanation as to why they have to wear them. Like, we can use our powers with these suits because they were exposed to the same thing that happened to us up in space. So that's why, Johnny, you can flame, Sue, you can still turn invisible, I can still do my stretchy bullshit.
Which I think is a better explanation for unstable molecules than, I mean, granted, it was the 60s and it was, Stan the Man Lee that he just came up with this stuff that just, and, even if it rips, you can just, smooth it out with your fingers and it's healed, which.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because when you mention unstable molecules, that's almost a connection to the Transformers franchise. And what I mean by that is in the fourth one, Age of Extinction, they're talking about transformium, and they literally discover that it's unstable molecules. That's where he turns the My Little Pony into the Dr. Dre beat thing or whatever. And I was thinking, all right, you know what? Sure. The Doctor Doom costume, I think for the most part, looks really good.
It is really comic accurate, and I loved it in the movie. And if you are ever fortunate enough to find the comic adaptation, and then that's a lost art of getting like a comic adaptation of a film, or even the novelizations, like that barely happens anymore because who reads, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the comic adaptation of the movie was the art was done by Dan Jurgens, who is mostly well known as a one of the premier Superman artists.
And he was the Death of Superman guy, right?
Yeah, well, he is one of several. I mean, that's him and was it Norm Brayfogle? I think that's the gentleman's name, and Tom Grummett, who I've actually met. They're all like indicative of the Death of Superman and Reign of the Superman franchise. But when you see the Doctor Doom movie costume rendered by Dan Jurgens, I thought, yeah, this is Doom. Like I said, he's turning into metal, and he's got these funky electrical powers. And, and then he puts on this cloak and whips out a heat-seeking rocket and shoots towards the Baxter Building, because
why not?
Screw you and your family, Reed.
The best. One thing I do want to say, I'm kind of glad, and this will probably sound blasphemous, but hear me out. I'm kind of glad they went with the electrical powers rather than him being a sorcerer, because that would be too much to explain. Like, now he has powers, now he can shoot shit, and there's a reason why he's hiding his face, right? Like, I get it. It's rather than him being aggressively vain, which they kind of hint at, but not having to explain. But not having to explain him being a magical genius too. Thinking, all right, makes sense. Now you don't have to go into his mother being like a witch and demons and all this crazy shit.
And he's possibly an ancestor of Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah, like it's something you're not gonna be able to throw away in like one or two lines of dialogue. Here, okay, cool. He has powers, and it just works.
And when you talk about costume in the film, I think that the ever-loving blue-eyed thing, the favored nephew of his sainted Aunt Petunia, Ben Grimm was realized very well in this movie. Now, granted, in the comics, he's, he shrinks and he grows. Like, you think of the cartoon that came out in the wake of the second film, like Fantastic Four: World's Greatest Heroes, and the thing's like 6 feet wide, 9 feet tall. He's basically an orange brick Hulk. But they did a big enough, like he's big, he's got the fat fingers. They did some stuff like
and it's a practical costume too.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Michael Chiklis can emote.
Yeah, like it looks really good for the time. Now, when we get to talking a little bit more about our speculations for Fantastic Four First Steps, when I compare it against the new costume, it looks good for the time. It's distinctly Michael Chiklis, and that's fine, because I remember at the time people wanted Michael Chiklis in the role of Ben Grimm, because they're like, yeah, that guy's the fucking thing. Like, people just knew. Like, it was fan casting that just really, really worked out.
And how he does that, hey Reed, what he does with his voice, and what they probably touched up with audio in the editing and all that, and they even have that it feels like fat shaming, but that gag where the four of them get on the elevator when
airplane?
they get
Oh,
back
yeah.
to the Baxter building and it's
I'll take
out
the stairs.
capacity. Yeah. Yeah. Also, when they get back to the building, they have one of the best deep cut Marvel character references. It's the Stan Lee cameo to end all Stan Lee cameos, in my opinion. He is playing Willie Lumpkin, the Fantastic Four's mailman, who has been in the comics, and I believe he hasn't been used in years, but he's been there all the way up. They even had to introduce in the early late 90s, early 2000s, when they came back from Heroes Reborn in the Fantastic Four comic. The first few issues, you meet Billy Lumpkin or Wilhelmina Lumpkin, his like a great grand niece or granddaughter, is like the smoking hot redhead, and Johnny and Ben were both hey, they both got eyes for her. I love that reference, and I remember there was a couple of guys who like hooted and clapped when Willie showed up. And when you talk about the Baxter Building, I love the aesthetic when they get up to the top there. Like this looks like a lab slash home. Like it's a weird Frankensteinian patchwork of a domicile.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the film overall, as we kind of get into the Rise of the Silver Surfer, it's a great film. I think it's pretty solid. It's not perfect. There's some really, 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 you went there with like the G
The
Unit
naked
on.
gig.
Well, the music, I think, like where
Yeah.
Johnny's does like the faux X Games motocross thing, and he light flames on for the first time, and then he lands, and it's this G Unit song "On Fire." I was like, really? The weakest thing, I think, just in terms of the plot, is kind of the third act, and really, it's just how they defeat Doctor Doom. Like he's fully converted into metal.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Ben have this great fight. Ben throws a car at Doom and he goes into this bus and he's like, "Ladies, I gotta borrow your car." The throttle sticks, not gonna be a problem. And he pitches this hatchback at him. And then Johnny does Supernova, which they established earlier. It's Chekhov's last resort. And then Sue contains the heat, and somehow that doesn't boil the concrete and burn a hole into the sewer, which you would think physics would demand that, but what do I know? I'm an idiot. And then Ben kicks the top off a hydrant and Reed funnels the water at Doom. Chem 101, what happens when you super cool heat hot metal, And then they're the heroes. I mean, you get that will they won't they where Reed proposes to Sue at the end, and such as it is. Now, before we get on to the second one, I have to. This is a moment on film that I think is akin to when we talked about Hellraiser many, many moons ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that bit where Andrew Robinson goes to the camera and he does that little with his finger at his eye.
Mm-hmm.
How we both kind of nerded out. It's like, oh my God, that was a brilliant thing. Was that in the script? Was that an improvisation? When Ben cosmic rays himself and becomes the thing again, he's like, I forget what Doom says, but Ben, Kool-Aid's through the wall. "No, Vic, it's clobbering time." And he punches him, sends him flying across the room. Damn, I've been waiting to do that. Was that the thing saying he finally got to punch Doom, or was that Michael Chiklis just drooling at the bit to say the line that is commonly associated with the thing?
I don't know, but you bring up an interesting point with that. Like when you talk about just Michael Chiklis, everybody in this film, at least of the four main Fantastic Four, there's a really good chemistry there. And I think a lot of people would say Jessica Alba is maybe the weakest link in this chain, which is, I think, a little bit unfair.
But
I think
not
she does.
completely unfair.
Yeah, like she's not a great Sue Storm, which is really unfortunate to say because when she goes on to do Sin City later, she does get significantly better, and she's gotten better acting over the years. I think in Fantastic Four 2, Rise of the Silver Surfer, she does a little bit better job. And I know she was cast because she was the it girl at that time, because, you know, she was a super attractive young actress. People really liked her. And again, she looks the part, but I don't get what Sue does. And I know in the comics, I know she's not as smart as Reed, but she's a scientist in her own way.
Well,
Like
that's the ultimate Marvel comics. And granted, for many, many years, through the 60s into the 70s, where they really started making her a little more of a character. Like, she's not just like, oh, Reed, Dr. Doom's attacking the Baxter building again, which is really how she was written for the longest time. And then she becomes like a woman, and she becomes like an equal. And writers started treating her like she should be an equal. Mr. Fantastic married her, you know? And yeah, no, Jessica Alba, I don't think was miscast. I do think they, painted her with the sexy brush a little too much. Like, you see where they're prepping for the launch, and Sue walks in, and it's like, she is wearing the suit of most chest show, because hers is open and the girls are right there, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what was happening in the moment?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
one gag I think that kind of works with her being sexy is when she disappears on the street and you can see her, obviously Victoria's Secret clothing or
For
whatever.
some reason, she had to
Yeah.
strip down to her skivvies.
Yeah, I'm thinking, all right, that's kind of a funny gag. Maybe a touch in poor taste. That's not something I think you could probably get away with today.
Unless
but
you're
still,
trying to do a farce.
yeah, like it's kind of it's a gag of its time, but it kind of works. I mean, like, yeah, like Marvel really underwrote her, because like I saw a panel on Facebook recently, and it was like some Fantastic Four comic. I don't even know which one, but supposedly, yeah, Taskmaster had like killed Reed, or at least beat the shit out of him, and Sue is cradling his body, and she looks at Taskmaster, and Taskmaster's like, ha ha ha, I've defeated Mr. Fantastic. What are you gonna do? And Sue's like, you've killed my husband. You better run. And it cuts back to Taskmaster, and it's just, as much as that skeleton mask is supposed to make him look all scary and bullshit, you can see he's like, shit. And then like Sue annihilates him.
Yeah.
And like fucking craters him. And then Reed obviously is fine. But I was like, see, that's what I want to see. Give me the cool Fantastic Four girl from then, or even the Marvel Rivals incarnation of her, where she's like this fucking badass. And it seems like comic book movies, like, obviously they're getting better with writing female characters. Like, even in the early 2000s, when we had the X-Men and everything, you'd get, like, I don't think Jean Grey was particularly well written, but I think Storm was, even though she didn't have a whole lot to do. But again, that's a conversation for a different podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, my thoughts on Fantastic Four from 2005, it's aggressively mid, but not badly so. This is something you can throw on, no problem. It's not bad. It's just not great. I mean,
it's a Sunday afternoon folding your laundry kind of movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's something you can throw on and you can pop in and out. You're not going to miss much. You're going to be like, hey, I remember that. And the fact that this is now canon to the Marvel main MCU, with, Johnny Storm showing up in Deadpool and Wolverine, I think that fares pretty cool for what's going to happen in the other big Marvel projects as we finish out the multiversal bullshit at like some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I thought that was cool.
Yeah. So we move into 2007's Rise of the Silver Surfer. Oh, God.
There are parts about this I really like. I think in some ways it's better paced, but in some ways it's a little worse. And my main complaint about this, I know they took it from the comics in the 60s, where Dr. Doom does get the powers of the Silver Surfer. But I'm like, okay, like he's randomly in Latveria and they fix him, and all of a sudden Revenge.
Well, yeah, because I mean, in the movie, uh, I mean, when you first see Doom, he's sitting in this creepy looking old European style castle. Dracula's two castles over, and he comes over for coffee sometimes, kind of thing. And Doom's sitting there in his cloak. He's got his mask on. They peel it off, and you hear this. I remember hearing this kind of sound as they peel it off, because he's the cosmic radiation that the Silver Surfer exude has been, going over the world and futzing everything up, and this has somehow freed him from his metal form. And I thought, oh, we're gonna get, goober faced Doctor Doom under there. And then, he goes to confront the Surfer, and he gets, hosed down with cosmic radiation when the Silver Surfer blasts him, and all of a sudden he's Julian McMahon again. And like, I know it's a thing, and it's his face, and whatever the deal was when he signed on to do the sequel, I get that. Like, one of my standout things for this movie was the Silver Surfer. I think his, the CGI and the actors that portrayed him, because this was a two-man team, it was unmistakably the voice of Morpheus, Lawrence Fishburne. And then the body work, like doing the mocap, was, Doug, I'm going to say Bradley, the guy who played Abe Sapien in the Hellboy movies.
Oh, yeah, the guy who from Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, he's Mr. Saru.
Yeah, shit.
Like, the dude.
Doug Jones.
Thank you. God, I hate it when I forget stuff like that. I think they did that really well. We got the Fantasticar, which I loved.
That was a nice callback. I mean, I
remember.
remember.
Need to have the Dodge gag, though.
Okay, that's kind of funny for the time. It works. One thing I think that would have been a nice deep cut, and I'm kind of sad they didn't do it. This was definitely a later Marvel gag thing. It would have been nice had they been going through Reed's workshop, and before Johnny sees the Fantastic, it would have been nice had they saw like a discarded prototype of Herbie and say, "Hey Reed, what's this?" Oh, it never worked anyway. That would have been a nice gag, but they didn't do it. Obviously, we get that in the new one.
I don't know if it's like a deleted scene, but I have seen stills from a scene that was cut from the first movie where you see a prototype Herbie on a shelf in Reed's lab, and it's this kind of cutesy Muppet Tom Servo looking kind of thing. Kind of glad they never used that. But yeah, no, the second film is Reed and Sue are trying to get married, and the Silver Surfer's come to Earth, and he's creating these giant sinkholes so that Galactus may feed. And then Galactus, who must be really shy on a galactic scale because it's this giant cloud. I'm going to let that sink in for a moment.
Yeah, like that's the biggest problem with
it was a
this.
letdown. It's not even
like and it's weird because you look at the movies at the time, right? So X-Men, we got to see Magneto, fucking awesome. We would see Venom a couple years later, and I'm gonna tie these two together, and here's what I mean. So Fantastic Four came out same year as Spider-Man 3, 2007. And I would wonder if somebody had heard that Galactus not being shown in his big purple head fuck you moment was an alarm bell, because Venom they showed aggressively. Not as aggressively as I think they could have with, the long tongue and the two big eyes and everything. You need to show your villains. And even with Elektra having Typhoid Mary, that was really fucking cut down. Having no identifiable villain in the Punisher outside of maybe the Russian, again, really didn't do it any fucking favors. But when you have a villain, a named villain,
marquee name.
Yeah, like you show Doctor Doom, he gets his fucking helmet, he looks awesome for the most part, but you bitch out on Galactus. That was such a letdown, and I really think that tainted the movie, because I think in a lot of ways Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, it's more it's faster paced, like it really hits the ground running, so to speak. It doesn't really give you a moment to breathe. And I think it's got a lot more moments of levity because they get a lot of the bullshit out of the way with the origin story. And like I really like Reed's bachelor party. Some of that shit's really funny.
Yeah, that whole scene, like I love it like when Stu busts in because Captain, my Captain, Andre Brower shows up and he needs Reed to help with, the sinkholes, and Sue storms in and you see Johnny and Ben are at the bar and Ben, oh, it's clobbering time. I was like, you know what? That was a solid pun. That was a solid use of that. But yeah, I love how Johnny made it like the prototypical bachelor party, and he got all these honeys and all these like vapid airheads who Johnny was like, yeah. And then Reed starts talking to him, and this is what I love about Mr. Grufford's performance is he has this absent-minded professor, Bill Nye the Science Guy kind of passion and vibe, and that scene where he's talking about how life started,
yeah.
And he's stretching his finger. All the women are just enraptured by him going. And then when he's dancing, he does like that corkscrew stretch and all that. And I'm like, oh my God, Mr. Fantastic learned to loosen up. And then
like it's fun. Like it's a scene that works because it's goofy, it's funny. And even when Sue comes in and like Andre Brower's captain is said, oh, he's in trouble or something, and she's like, oh, you have no idea.
yeah.
And again, it's like, see, that's the Sue Storm chemistry that I like. That's right. I get the feeling Alba was able to have a little bit more fun, and they gave her a lot more to do in this movie because she starts to have that relationship, or at least that I want to understand Nor and Rad. Like, I want to get to know you, like, let me help you sort of thing. And that's, I think, one of the movie's stronger moments is what they give Alba to do. But one thing I don't think that works very well, and it's going to contradict what I just said. Johnny or Ben overhears a conversation where Reed and Sue are like, you know what? Maybe we need to hang this up, have a normal life as much as we possibly can. And then obviously Ben and Johnny are like, well, what are we going to do? The dynamic duo? And, obviously, wah, wah. And, Johnny and Ben are all upset on the helicopter to go out and deal with this with Dr. Doom just happens to be there. Because they're tracking down the surfer, and they're like, yeah, we were going to tell you. Like, that felt like an unnecessary plot point. I get why they're doing it, because they want to make sure we're all a team and we're family and blah, blah, blah. But it felt like it was handled so clumsily that it takes away from it, I think.
And then the whole power switching thing. So you get this really, really lame attempt at a super scroll.
Oh, yeah. Like, it could have been cool. They set it up in an interesting manner, but they play it for gags, which again, seeing Chris Evans in the Thing makeup, that's kind of funny.
I know, like, oh, come on. And then Ben's just like, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, like, see, that's the thing I think that works this way. Like, when the humor hits, it's actually pretty amusing, but then they go to London and Johnny accidentally switches powers with Reed, and now he's the Human Torch, and they have to fuse the giant Ferris wheel to the Thing, or to the eye. And I'm thinking, okay, this scene could have worked, but because you established it was played for laughs earlier, you kind of turned Johnny into a bitch, and I don't know what other phrase to use. They basically make him look incompetent. But it's weird. I got to thinking about this again, rewatching this movie like literally the other night. I think they had confidence in Chris Evans because he does a lot more in this movie than he did the last one.
I think he does the most amongst the main four out of the family. Like, because when you talk about the dynamic duo of like they perfectly capture the little brother, big brother shenanigans in the first movie, like where Ben wakes up and it's that POV shot and Johnny's like, well, I don't think you should look in the mirror, Ben. It could be a bit of a shock. And he's like, well, they did everything they could, but they couldn't fix your face. And this is like before he transforms, or where they have the learning to live together sequence with like, you know, the sitcom music, and Johnny's like trying to do like the feather on the nose to make him sneeze kind of thing with the feather duster, and then he turns around, uses the wooden end, and he finally gets that where Ben slaps the handful of shaving cream in his face, and I just the look on Chris Evans' face where he's like, yes, and he scurries away to plot another day. And Johnny, like, I love that. And yeah, it's like, again, like the script, like, as always, like I always think the script is the biggest villain of most projects where things aren't completely realized. Like, and even I don't think Chris Evans bought his dialogue, like, where, in the words of a friend of mine, it's clobbering time. And then, you know, he starts laying hands on Doom after he's used his cosmic siphon to absorb the Surfer's power. And then, you know, they save the Surfer, and he Jesuses Sue back to life because she dies. Spoiler. And then he decides, like, well, I'm gonna go sacrifice myself and set me up for the spinoff that never gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes to face Galactus. Now, if you know comic books at all, folks, you know the big G is the purple and blue tuning fork helmet. I was the last living life from the previous universe prior to the Big Bang. You know, Galen of Ta Galactus. And then there's the Ultimate Comics where Galactus is this, basically it's a swarm of giant cosmic powered locusts. And they realize that version in this film as this giant space cloud that goes around, you know, absorbing planets by just sucking it dry. And if they had used the version of Galactus from the Marvel Mangaverse comics that were around this time, where it's literally this giant, you know, Ego the Living Planet thing with tentacles and one big eye that goes around eating worlds, like it's
Unicron sort of thing, right?
Yeah. And then what really, really burns my bacon about how they showed Galactus in this movie is in the opening sequences, you see Galactus traveling across the cosmos. You get 2 or 3 shots of where his shadow, and I don't know if it's a him or a her or a they, but you see Galactus's shadow go over these planets, and you see the boxcar helmet with the tuning forks on the side. And then when the Surfer strikes his Jesus pose in the cloud, and you see Galactus, like, he have the tuning fork helmet, and there's this humanoid form there, and then boom, and Galactus is gone.
Yeah, like, that reeks to me, somebody at the studio got cold feet. And I get it, because superhero movies were still kind of an unknown quantity. Like, you'd had some moderate hits. Like I said, the X-Men movies went over really well, but their villains, I think, in some ways were easier to adapt. Because, like,
Yeah.
you even think about, like, X-Men 2, X-Men United, their big villain was Stryker. Okay, here's Brian Cox from Succession. There's no big costume to do, really. Punisher, hi, I'm John Travolta. Okay, we're gonna put Kevin Nash in a striped shirt. Now that's the Russian, right? You didn't have anybody who was really identifiable. I would argue the most identifiable villain to come out of these Fox movies was Bullseye. Because Bullseye looked kind of like Bullseye. Like, he had the thing in his forehead, whatever. Elektra looked like Elektra.
Colin Farrell's performance was absolutely feral.
I love him as Bullseye.
Do. He literally looks like he's on bath salts and he's about to start gnawing on Daredevil's face.
Yeah, like, it's hard to do a villain big. I mean, like, even with, like, X-Men 1, right? Magneto looks great, but again, it's fucking Gandalf, right? Cool. Sabretooth here, Tyler Mane here, wear some claws, wear a furry shirt, party on.
Well, he
Toad
looked like Sabretooth.
Yeah, he looked like Sabretooth, so it looked fine. Even Toad, sure, I guess. But yeah, like, to translate a villain to screen, I think the most successful at that time is Bullseye, Magneto, and Doctor Doom at that time. Any
Yeah.
other attempt looks weird. Green Goblin is different because they even had to adapt the suit. Like there were animatronic tests to give him the evil green elf outfit, but it was
He's
deemed
supposed to
quote unquote
morph into that form.
yeah, and they said this is too scary for kids. Let's make it a military thing. And I'm like, okay, fine. I mean,
Okay,
it kind of works, but still, and
do you think
even
Willem
for
Dafoe's scarier with or without the makeup?
depends on the day because he's
Yeah.
out doing goblin shit. And
But
even
when you
Dr. Octopus at this because
Oh,
Spider-Man 2 is 2004. So Doc Ock looks good. Now he doesn't have the big 90s fuck you glasses, but they give him goggles and it works with the
yeah, and then
power
he
of the
gets the
sun in the palm of
shades.
my hand. Yeah, it
Yeah.
works.
And now when you talk about villains, when you talk about Bullseye, just quick sidebar, I love the fact that, that introduction to film where he's chugging the pint and
Throwing darts.
he's just sinking threes with the darts, and then he takes his toque off, or his beanie in America, and he's got the scar there. Now, that was eventually brought into the comics where I think it was one of the Kevin Smith Daredevil comics, or one, if he didn't write it, is at the time, but eventually, at this point in the comics, Bullseye has killed Karen Page with the Billy Club, and then later on, Daredevil takes revenge, and he's got him in a headlock, and he takes like this knife or glass, and he carves the Bullseye into his head, and he's had it ever since. But when you talk about really well realized villains, I think it's an understated thing. Michael Clark Duncan, rest in power, King.
Yeah,
as
he was
Kingpin.
a really good Kingpin.
'Cause
Yeah, I will grant you that.
Name me another actor that was big enough to do Wilson Fisk like that.
Yeah, because it wouldn't be until many years later when we get Vincent D'Onofrio's version of Wilson Fisk. And even then, like in the comics, like I remember this crystal fucking clear because I was a big Kingpin fan back in the day. They used to have these Marvel trading cards. And on the back of one of the cards, they're like, people think Kingpin's fat. They're like, no, he's literally 1% body fat. All that's muscle. And I was
Yeah.
thinking, that means I can be like that.
And then
Obviously,
he's
I'm clearly not.
superhuman
Yeah.
in the PlayStation Spider-Man games. And he is superhuman because I don't care how little body fat you have. That scene where he
takes, like, a piece
smashes
of-
his
Yeah.
granite desk and throws Spider-Man through a 3-foot thick wall. Super
Yeah,
soldier
that's pretty-
serum.
Oh yeah, like he's tough. Like he's
Yeah.
on the juice.
Yeah. So these first two movies, I think, arguably to this point, are the best. But now we have to, hop on Doctor Doom's time platform and travel back to the far off year of 1994. And
I was so surprised that this exists, and it's weird, JT, because I've got a weird story for this. So when I was a wee lad, I remember reading Wizard magazine, which I would love to figure a way to talk about that at some point. But
Mhm.
Wizard magazine, I remember them talking about this, and I was like, "There's no fucking Fantastic Four movie." And then they showed the costumes. I'm thinking, that okay, that's neat. And then we were able to find a copy of this movie because it's never officially been released, but there's a documentary on it. You showed this to me. Wow. But I will say this, in some ways, it's not bad.
Yeah.
For a
And we
Roger Corman movie, it's
Yeah,
not bad.
from 1994. I actually do kind of love this movie, as bad, quote unquote, dick fingers as it is. There is more heart and effort to capture the Fantastic Four on film in the
Yeah.
unreleased, wink wink, Corman film than the Tim Story movies. I mean, you look at, first of all, you look at Doctor Doom's costume. Now it looks Power Rangers AF, but it
looks
is
good in
it is
a weird way.
1-to-1 from the comics. Like, you got the green, you got the silver, you got the gold medallions with the chain on the front, because
The
all good villains got to
gauntlets.
have a chain. The
Yeah.
gauntlets. The actor, I just got to look him up here, who played Doctor Doom, Joseph Culp. uh, he had this aristocraticness to his voice, to the way he held himself in scenes. You know, he had this almost unapproachableness, like that kind of energy, that vibe you would think Doctor Doom would have. And then you have Alex Hyde White, who played Mr. Fantastic. Like, I bought the relationship. You know, he wasn't as abrasive as Doom is in the comics. You know, he isn't all the way up his ass. Because, I mean, those that don't
Frenemies,
know,
sort of thing.
yeah,
right?
they were frenemies in the comic. This one, they're friends. I mean, in the comics, when Doom's experiment scars him, you think his face is all mussed up. No, he's got essentially a fencing scar on his cheek. He's like, "Oh, my beautiful face," you know. And then he really messes his face up when he has this cult of Tibetan monks put his mask on before it's even been tempered. I mean,
Have a
you're the
little
smart-
patience. Go take a walk.
You're
Go
the
drink a
smartest.
coffee.
You're the smartest guy in the Marvel universe, right? But anyway, the Thing suit in this movie. Oh my God, it is gorgeous. It looks like he's covered in caramel corn, but he looks like the goddamn Thing.
Yeah, for the time, it doesn't look bad.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing about this. One thing that really caught me about this was like there's a lot of genuineness to this. And I know this was made to keep the rights under Corman for like another however long. This was basically a movie that had to be made for legal reasons. And you'd be surprised how often this happens in Hollywood. And I was like, this would not have done well at wide release. But if you'd put this out direct to video, like your Full Moon Entertainments, like a lot of Roger Corman projects did anyway, I think this would have done pretty well, honestly.
It would have been, even if it, like a lot of Corman films, I mean, it seems like every other Corman film got a theatrical release up to a point, and then
I think the last one was Frankenstein Unbound, I want to say, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. And then they just became, you know, direct to video, like the video store staples.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of my favorite Corman films is Humanoids
Carnosaur?
from the Deep.
Yep. Mine's Carnosaur and Death Race.
You know what? The only Carnosaur I like is the second one, where it's just a blatant Aliens ripoff. But I mean, this first movie, it is. I mean, to go back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier, like, again, with certain characters, you just know the origin already. Like Spider-Man, great power, great responsibility. Batman, parents, boom, boom. Superman, he's an orphan. Like, we know that already. So I think there's nothing wrong with having the first movie in a potential franchise be an origin movie. Like with Fantastic Four First Steps, like when the movie starts, they've already got their powers. They've been to space. You know, they have the guy on the Ed Sullivan show knockoff talking about how they went to space and cosmic rays and all that. So we get the origin story, but it doesn't become the entire story. And sometimes that's necessary. This one, it works where they don't go to space, but they're trying to bring down cosmic rays. And what was it with diamonds being the lenses in scientific equipment in sci-fi films in this era?
I blame Pinky and the Brain for this primarily, or like,
Yeah, this is before Pinky and the Brain, though.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, one thing I really was hoping this was going to be like a deep cut, but I know the bad guy in this, like, because there's two bad guys. There's Doctor Doom and there's the Jeweler. It's
the Mole Man.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, why is this guy not the Mole Man? Because if they just changed the name to the Mole Man, I'm thinking, fucking respect, because that was the first villain that they ever fought.
Yeah. Also, if that was supposed to be a diamond, and when you see this thing in the film, folks, if you ever happen to watch it, it looks like this giant porcupine made out of quartz crystal. And I like, if that's a diamond, even if it's an industrial diamond used for such things, there is no way on God's green earth that Reed Richards would have been able to afford this thing.
Yeah, nah, like the Hope Diamond makes this thing look, you know, like, it's just like, God damn it.
And that's garish.
Yeah, it's ridiculously goofy. And even when they did the character of Alicia, like the Thing's girlfriend who's blind, again, actually, that's something I want to mention about all three of these movies. They do disability representation not terrible. I don't think it's as offensively bad as it could have been, but it kind of works in this. Although Liam pointed this out to me and it really made me laugh. In the Roger Corman one, Alicia gets attacked by, there's no other way to say this, but by mole people. And Liam looks at me and goes, you know, like a blind person has their senses, you know, heightened, right? Because they have to make up for shit. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's a reasonable assumption to make. She's like, wouldn't she smell them? I'm thinking, you know, that's a fair point. But still, yeah, like there's moments in this where I thought they had Doom bots in this, but no, they're just crazy people dressed up as Doom.
Now, when you talk about Alicia Masters, we completely forgot to mention Kerry Washington plays Alicia in the Tim Story movies. It's like
gorgeous.
And oh god, she is beyond gorgeous. She's transcendent. But the way they bring her in, like Ben's out there in the requisite Ninja Turtle, you know, trench coat and hat. He goes to his local bar, people are talking shit, and the bartender's got his back. He's like, hey, this guy's from Brooklyn. He's a hero. How many of you fucks have gone to outer space? You know, and then Ben's sitting there like, just take me now, God. Why would you do this to me? He's trying to drown his sorrows. And God's like, yeah, that was a bit of a mistake on my part. Here's Kerry Washington. Enjoy. And like that scene where she takes him back to her gallery and it's almost erotic the way she's cleaning his cracks. And he's definitely got his O face on. I'm just like, enjoy it, Ben. You deserve it, buddy.
Although, okay, funny sidebar, not meant to be offensive, will likely be anyway. While I was watching this with Liam, he looks at me, he goes, how does the Thing go to the bathroom? And I was like, you know, well, he's a pretty big guy. I'm a pretty big guy. So going to the bathroom when you're a bigger person can be annoying at times. But we see the Thing break airline seats, break stools and everything. He's like, would the Thing need to have an adamantium toilet? I'm thinking, well, I don't think adamantium, but considering Reed probably gets along pretty well with the Wakandans, maybe a vibranium reinforced toilet. Just anyway, weird sidebar conversations that came out of watching a movie.
See, all I know is that scene in the first movie where you see Ben. It's one of my favorite lines in the first movie where they examine his internal organs and you see they're all kind of encrusted with the rocks. What's wrong? You know, I used to smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Corman movie, the worst thing about this, aside from the fact that it did not get released in any official capacity, was the ColecoVision graphics they used
right
when Johnny plays on, and it is like this. No, you remember some of the Marvel cartoons in the 80s where they have that kind of silver,
PG
like I don't know,
extra.
Well, where he comes down on top of the Marvel thing and it's like Sunbow Productions, like that Spider-Man was better animated than the Human Torch in this movie.
And you know that's where the budget went.
Yeah, and then how are we going to get his arms to stretch? Okay, he's going to stretch at this angle and then we're going to change the camera angle so it's his hand comes in from off screen, and they did that, and I knew that's the gag they're going to when they get when Sue and Reed get married at the end. They get in the thing, and you just see this big rubber blue and white arm, you know, just lazily swaying in the breeze as the car drives away. Yeah. Now I was just looking at the cast here in this movie. Harmony from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is one of her first films. Mercedes McNabb plays a young Sue Storm in the first part of the movie before the present day. But it establishes that Reed is easily 15 to 18 years older. Or
yeah, it's a little creepy. It's a little creepy.
Well, it would have been better if they had a slightly younger actor play Reed, And then you
Mhm.
fast forward to all this time later, and then it's Alex Hyde White, but it's Alex Hyde White in this, where he's at college, but he's renting a room in
Miss
Mama
Storm's
Storm.
like, yeah, like that's a little bit weird. I mean, even Johnny's a little goofy in this. I think he's the weakest cast member because he's just a little too energetic during all this.
Yeah. I mean, it bothered me because I recently I have the documentary Doom: The Untold Story of Roger Corman's Fantastic Four, and I watched that after I watched the version that I found the cleanest version I could find on YouTube. And it bothered me where I knew Jay Underwood from, who plays Johnny Storm in this movie.
Mhm.
It's do you remember the Not Quite Human movies from the Disney Sunday night show?
Vaguely.
Where it's this scientist that creates this lifelike android, and the scientist, it's everyone's favorite TV dad, Alan Thicke, and he creates an android son named Chip, and it's
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, there was like 3 movies in the series, and it's just like just all the nostalgia flooded through me when I realized that, because I was like, I have not seen that any of those things since like the very early 90s. Now, I do like this movie.
Yeah, like it's got
It's
a lot of
I
things to
don't know
like
how to
about it.
classify it, like it's not good, it's not bad, it's not meh. It's just it's
It's
this
there.
it's this unicorn of sorts.
Yeah,
It's
like when it comes to movies that were made under a very specific budget crunch time and everything, it's the best of the worst. And that's okay. For a Corman movie, it's really good, all things
and
considered.
that's the thing with quality. I think people put with any comic book movie, it's so many people nowadays. Like I posted, I don't know if you saw that picture I put in the chat of it's a still from the Doctor or from the latest Superman trailer. It's
Mhm.
Lex Luthor sipping his coffee and says, "Me watching Snyder Bros crash out after the latest Superman trailer."
Yeah.
And that's the thing. People put way too. If it's not one to one with they think it is, it sucks. And I think I love it when any movie production with a comic book movie tries to embrace the inherent silliness, the inherent camp of a comic book, especially like Fantastic Four. They go for a long weekend and dad takes a wrong turn and they get lost kind of thing. And
Mhm.
then it goes from there. Now, as we start to wrap up, I okay, Mike,
Yeah.
we got to talk about it.
No.
Yeah, I'm
No.
sorry,
No.
Mike. We have to talk about Josh Trank's Fant Four Stick. Yeah, what you heard, folks, is the sum total of everybody that ever watched this movie, either clips on YouTube or paid money in the theater, and the fact that people paid money to watch this.
That
Dear
was the
God,
sound
why?
of my soul dying, by the way.
Yeah, my soul died in the 90s when I saw the Mario Brothers movie.
Oh.
But
See,
okay, I will say this about the film. It they even more than the first Tim Story movie, uh this one they tried to one-to-one copy the origin of the Ultimate Fantastic Four comic, where essentially Reed creates a door to the negative zone and then their bodies get faxed through the multiverse. That's literally how they explain it in the comics. And in this one, it's just literally dimensional travel and everyone gets their powers. And the fact that honestly surprised, the fact that people bitched more about the story than the fact that Sue Storm is adopted and her brother is Michael B. Jordan.
yeah, I remember a lot of not nice comments about Michael B. Jordan coming out around this time. I'm thinking, I'm cool with a black human torch, who cares?
Yeah,
But what they did to the thing where like clobbering time is a sign of being bullied, I'm like,
by his brother
whoa. Yeah, I'm like,
versus
I'm not cool with this.
the comics where clobbering time is what Ben would yell when he runs for a touchdown when he played football in college. Now, the movie sucks. I tried watching it once, and I got about as far as them getting to the negative zone and Doctor Doom or Victor Von Damme taking a dip in this toxic Mountain Dew. And then I'm like, I tapped out. I don't care. I don't care. Now, I think aside from the films, they have several animated movies or cartoons to their credit. You have the original Hanna-Barbera produced series that ran in the 1960s, like the same year the original Spider-Man cartoon came out. That's one of my favorites. The animation is really of its time, but they very accurately adapt to a degree most of the comics from the era. Uh, pardon me. Now the Thing got a spin-off cartoon of sorts where they had Fred and Barney meet the Thing, where the first half of the show was a Flintstones short, and then there's the Thing where, this tall, lanky Benji Grimm, hangs around with like Sue Storm. He has these two magic rings, thing ring, do your thing, and all these bricks fly off from off screen, transform him. That one's kind of fun, but it's forgettable. There was the a 70s one where they replaced Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, with Herbie. And for years, the urban legend was that they didn't want producers didn't want kids to like emulate the Human Torch by setting themselves on fire. Which has since been disproven, and it was more along the lines that they were looking at spinning off the Human Torch into his own series, which never happened. And then we have the 90s Fantastic Four cartoon, part of the Marvel Action Universe, with the Spider-Man and X-Men and Iron Man. I love that series. The first season, a lot goofier. I like the second season more, where they really tried adapting comics, or some of the comic stories, very well. Like they did the Inhumans saga, and I love that.
I mean, a lot of Marvel animated shows in the 90s, they really there were a lot of people who were on the writing staff who genuinely really tried to give us these mature stories, or stories that were ripped almost one-to-one from the comics. Like I was very pleased with it.
And then we get Shocker!
But it worked in weird context.
Yeah, and I mean, they had the Fantastic Four showed up in a few episodes of Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Superhero Squad, where James Marsters, Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, voiced Reed Richards, which I would love. Hell, I would like to see him play Reed live action. I'm there. I said it. And they also showed up in Hulk and Agents of Smash. And then you had, I mentioned earlier, Fantastic Four, World's Greatest Heroes, which had this. Moonscoop Studios did the art on this, and it takes a lot of getting used to, because you look at Doctor Doom and he almost has horse face, like Sue has a horse face. I love the version of the Thing, like I said before, 6 foot wide, 9 feet tall. For some reason they spray painted a 4 in his chest as if we weren't going to know he was part of the team. I think the worst thing about this, and I did an episode with Mike Blanchard years ago on Tooncast where we talked about this. This is by far the most aggravating version of Johnny Storm ever. Like it's not even him being an annoying little brother. Like Brian Austin Green in the 90s show was a better Johnny Storm. I mean that honestly. Like I love Brian Austin Green's performance there. But Christopher Jacot, or Jassot, however you pronounce his name, I would rather drag my knees over a mile of rusted metal and broken glass and then try and dance a jig on a mandolin than ever hear this version of Johnny Storm speak again. I would rather watch the Super Mario Brothers movie from the 90s. And if you've listened to this show or any of the shows I've been on Twig in all the years I've worked with Mike, folks, I fucking despise that movie. And I would sooner watch that in a Clockwork Orange situation, straight jacket, eyes put open, eye drops, than ever hear that character's voice again.
Dear Lord. Yeah, I mean, I will say most of the animated adaptations, they've been pretty good. The movies, it's been hit or miss, but I think for the most part, they've been a hit but off target, is what I would say. The new one, like I said, comes out next week. I'm sure me and JT will talk about it at some point here on the show.
I'm hoping to actually get to the theater for that.
Yeah, like I'm hoping maybe at the end of the year, maybe we'll do like a year-end roundup of what's all come out, because we'll have had this, we'll have had Superman, we'll have had, I'm sure, probably one or two other things by
Ironheart.
the end. Ironheart, which came out last month. So we'll have a lot to talk about. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to come out. Like I said, maybe we'll do a Superman show at some point this year, because I think that might be an interesting way to look at the cinematic history and the adaptations thereof. And yeah, so I think it'll be pretty good. So I have to take the Fantastic Car and get out of here. So we've got a lot of good stuff coming up here over the course of this summer. So make sure you're keeping it locked in. Me and JT are going to be recording a few more things, and you're going to hear more from me, Alex, Ken, Adam, and David Denoyer from Do You Even Movie. Make sure you check out their podcast as well. So yeah, JT, any parting words of wisdom from, I guess, your very own Reed Richards?
All in all, if you have to own any of the movies that have been legally released and not pirated, wink, wink, if they ever released a 60s cartoon, I would say buy it. And the Marvel, the 90s show is out on DVD. I would say pick it up or borrow it from a friend. And if you have to get the Tim Story movies, I recommend the extended cut of the first movie from 2005, because they have extended cuts of that, Ghost Rider, and Daredevil. And they all added back in, I think in Daredevil's case, it was like almost 45 minutes were added back into the film. It doesn't make the films wholly better, but it makes them a lot more coherent storytelling wise, especially Daredevil, because you have that scene at the end where, Daredevil and Kingpin have their dust up and all of a sudden the cops are coming. You don't know why the cops are coming. It certainly couldn't be because Joey Pants talk to that one detective and all of a sudden, well, shit, we should have done this ages ago. So I say get the director's cut. And yes, folks, for TWIG Sunday Funnies, I have been JT from Saskatoon with
Mike the Birdman.
And I say, make yours Marvel, and we'll see you in the funny pages. Later.
It's clobbering time.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.
You guys are cramping my style.
Johnny, you were at 4,000 Kelvin. Any hotter and you're approaching supernova.
Sweet!
No, not sweet. That's the temperature of the sun.
Not only could you kill yourself, but you could set fire to Earth's atmosphere and destroy all human life as we know it.
Got it. Supernova. Bad.